All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. This is your fellow servant, Rokoyer from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another impromptu lesson. And as you see from the title of this lesson, in times past, the elites have been able to capitalize off of war, the aftermath of war. But this third world's woe, all right, will not afford them the same opportunities as it did in times past, because after this third world's war, there will be no more America, Babylon the Great. There will be no more opportunities to capitalize off of, because this land will be desolate and barren. Thus saith the Lord, and thus saith prophecy. And just like, words, food, technology, Esau has weaponized war. We've seen how war has been used to change political, economic, and social norms. Hence phrases like this one from Einstein, which says, in the midst of every crisis lies opportunity. You have other quotes like this of Winston Churchill, all right, saying, let no crisis go to waste. All right, we've seen, all right, how they've used every crisis, not only through war, all right, but through political and social, indifferences, crisis within political and social, aspects. We've seen how they've used these different crises to push their agenda, to forward their agenda. They've truly let no crisis go to waste. And through prophecy, we understand the mindset of the devil. We understand the latter end of Esau Edom's enterprise. Hence we're watching, which is why we watch, continuously, to see what the Lord is saying, to see how the enemy is maneuvering. All right, because all it's going to take is one crisis for them to implement this MOTB, and all it's going to take is one crisis to get World War III rolling, alongside the pestilences, alongside Jacob's trouble, the famine of the word. All it's going to take is one crisis. And after that, it'll give them justification to move in with their wicked enterprise, man. And alongside that quote, when you look it up on Google from Winston Churchill, let no crisis go to waste, it says on the AI overview, it means viewing a crisis not just as a disaster, but as a unique opportunity to enact significant changes, reforms, or innovations that might be impossible during normal times. We understand that this new technological age, all right, where Esau plans on integrating his technology with our biology, all right, through devices like Neuralink and the Mark of the Beast, which is the RFID microchip. All right, we understand that these things won't be widely accepted under normal times. Just like the jab, all right, taking it back to 2020. All right, that jab wouldn't be easily, accepted under normal circumstances. But since there was a crisis going on in the earth, people took it willingly. And the same thing is going to happen with that MOTB, that Revelation 13 and 16. They understand that under normal circumstances, people aren't going to willingly follow after the image of the beast. They aren't going to willingly follow after Esau's this enterprise. This technological overthrow. But they will under the circumstance of a crisis, just like they've used different crises before. So again, it says viewing a crisis not just as a disaster, but as a unique opportunity to enact significant changes, reforms, or innovations that might be impossible during normal times. And we understand through prophecy and certain trends, that the elite plan on forging their new world by destroying the one that's present. All right. And by destroying the one that's present, afterward, they plan on rising up like the phoenix through the ashes, like they put in that movie Avengers, which is the actual ideology of the wicked. All right, that they're going to rise from the ashes, all right, of World War III and enter into this new digital technological age. But the scripture saying Job, the 14th chapter. Let me get it. This is Job chapter 14. In verse 5, it says, seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee, that has appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. All right. And the Lord has set a bound on Esau, Edom, that he can't pass. All right. There's a limit to the so-called white man's kingdom. And we're approaching that limit speedily. All right. Whilst they think they're going to rise from the ashes, because they do have one thing, right? All right. There is going to be ashes. Okay. It says in Revelation, Second Esdras, Salakia, the 13th chapter, that after the Lord returns and wages war on the world, all right, nothing can be received but dust and smell of smoke. All right, so they have that aspect right. All right, but rising from those ashes is where they veer from the viewpoint of prophecy. That's where they veer from reality. Because after the Lord comes and completely subjugates Babylon the Great and these other nations, there will be no rising up for Edom. This is it. This is the bound that the Lord has set upon the so-called white man. All right. And there's no escaping it. There's nothing that he can do outside of these bounds. You know, this is Job chapter 18 and verse 6. It says, the light shall be dark in his tabernacle, and his candle shall be put out with him. The steps of his strength shall be straightened, and his own counsel shall cast him down. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, and he walketh upon a snare. The jinn shall take him by the heel, and the robber shall prevail against him. Speaking about Yahweh Shai. The snare is laid for him in the ground, and a trap for him in the way. Terror shall make him afraid on every side, and shall drive him to his feet. His strength shall be hunger bitten, and destruction shall be ready at his side. All right, and we're approaching that destruction. All right, we're approaching that age of destruction, where Esau Edom is going to bring upon himself his own demise. You know, his own demise. And this is a beautiful time to be alive, you know, in our right minds, per se. It's a beautiful time to be alive in your right mind. Because through the viewpoint of prophecy, we can see the bigger picture. We can see what Esau can't see. Even though he glories himself in being the eagle, you know, in which eagles have are significant, you know, signs, or known, Salakia. Eagles are known to have excellent eyesight, you know, the best view amongst fowls. But this destruction, he can't even see himself. You know, he can't even see his latter end like we can. And it's beautiful, man. You know, but this lesson was really inspired by something I typed in the chat GPT. And I said, give me specific details on how America profited from World War I and World War II. All right. And these are the things that it gave me. Now, it gave me a whole list of things. I'm not going to read, you know, through it all, but, you know, we'll get a few things. It says World War I, 1914 and 1918. It says, number one, arms and supply sales before U.S. entry. It says major industries profiting were the steel industry, arms industry, and agricultural industry. The U.S. economy boomed while Europe's infrastructure was destroyed. All right, and we see that this economy now is failing. All right, and in order to get the economy back running, there needs to be a reset. You know, there needs to be something that happens catastrophically, all right, to set the American economy back afloat. Because right now, the housing market is dropping. All right, the economy itself, the monetary value of the dollar is crashing. Okay, all sectors of America's economy, agriculturally, arms, all of these aspects are failing. So it needs to be some catastrophic event to put this Babylonian economy back afloat. And war is one of the ways that they believe they're going to achieve this. All right, because under World War I, we see, you know, that these industries soared. All right, the steel industry soared because, you know, weapons and vehicles and so on and so forth. You know, the arms industry. It says the agricultural industry. Said it sold massive amounts of weapons, food, oil, and raw materials, mainly to Britain and France. Now, number two says war equals loans. war loans equals interest plus leverage. All right, it says American banks finance the Allied war, which right now we see that Babylon the Great is losing its leverage. Why? Because according to prophecy, the beast is hating the whore. All right, all of America's allies are starting to turn against her. All right. And they're losing their leverage. And you have countries like Venezuela who are really showing the smaller nations that we can really circumvent the dollar. We don't have to deal with America. All right. We don't have to go and subjugate ourselves to the same bullying that we have a years before. Our out now is Russia. Our out now is China. We can do business with them instead of being bullied and gypped by Babylon the Great. They're losing their leverage. So in World War one of the opportunities, or one of the things that America gained was leverage. Okay, through war loans. It says the U.S. shifted from a debtor nation to the world's largest creditor. All right. Number 3 says the dollar replaces the pound. It says before World War I, the British pound equaled global reserve currency. After World War I, the U.S. dollar becomes dominant. Reasons: Britain sold off overseas assets to pay for war. Gold flowed into U.S. vaults. New York replaced London as the world's financial center. Long-term financial dominance. Number 4 says industrial expansion. All right, World War I accelerated mass production, chemical industry growth, and oil dominance. U.S. oil production supplied 70% of Allied fuel. It says a permanent industrial advantage. All right, now we're getting into the benefits of World War II from 1939 to 1945. It says the Lend-Lease program. It says not charity. Allies stayed dependent while U.S. factories ran nonstop. All right, going down, it says the end of the Great Depression. World War II fully revived the U.S. economy. The unemployment went from 1940 to 14%. In 1944, it increased by 2%. All right. It decreased by 2%. Salakia. GDP nearly doubled from 1939 to 1945. The industrial output increased 300%. War production equals economic resurrection. All right. And, even now, we see how, once again, the economy is failing and jobs are being lost. And that's all according to prophecy. You go to Ecclesiastes 12, it gets into how the grinding was going to cease. All right, Isaiah 19 gets into how there will be no more work for Egypt that the head, tail, branch, or rust may do, roughly paraphrasing. All right, and we see companies like Amazon, all right, different grocery companies going out of business, furloughing, all right, different retail apocalypses taking place. Okay, all of these things are a sign of a failing kingdom. And one thing that, America has done in the past to rejuvenate, that economy, again, was the weaponization of war. Okay, going to war. It increased the U.S. economy. Number 3 says the destruction of competitors. The U.S. emerged as the only fully functioning industrial superpower. Number four says Bretton Woods system, 1944. U.S. controlled global finance rules for decades. Number 5. I'm just hitting through because, as you get into these different points, it has different bullet points underneath, and, we'll be here all day reading these bullet points. But it says military industrial complex for number 5. It says continuous profit through global arms dominance. Companies that exploded in size: Boeing, Lockheed Martin, General Motors, and Raytheon. Defense spending became a permanent feature, not wartime only. Number 6, global-based network, economic plus strategic dominance. Control trade routes, choke points, and political outcomes. Number 7 is Marshall Plan, rebuilding equals influence. Europe rebuilt using American products under U.S. leadership. The bottom line: World War I gains financial dominance, industrial expansion, dollar supremacy. World War II gains total economic recovery, global financial control, military industrial empire, and a permanent geopolitical leadership. America didn't just win the wars militarily, it converted global catastrophe into long-term economic and structural power. All right. And that's what they're trying to do yet a third time, but for a third and final time. And this third and final time, they're going to issue in supposedly, this Fourth Reich, or this fourth industrial revolution. They're going to revolutionize what it means to be a human. What it means to live on the planet Earth. Like one of the ladies said in the WEF meeting a couple of years ago, you will own nothing and be happy. That's the ideology that Esau Edom is coming with. And in order to force that ideology onto the people, they're going to move through crises. All right. We've already seen how different civil liberties are being stripped away. All right. And how they're setting in place really a technocracy. A digital technocracy wherein you have no more autonomy. You're not a person. With all these different companies like Palantir, these data collection companies, all right, evaluating you, reading all your data, putting you into a category. You have all these cameras on the street now. Now they're trying to push digital IDs and social credit systems with all this madness being set in place. All right, we see how they're trying to revolutionize the world. We see how they're trying to capitalize off of this next world war. But it won't happen the way they think it's going to happen. Because Isaiah, the 9th chapter, in the 5th verse, says that for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments rolled in blood. But this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. All right, when you get into the word burning, it goes into cremation. All right. And America, Babylon the Great, is going to be cremated by Yahushua from the missiles that are shot off from that chariot. All right, we're going to get that in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter. All right, Babylon is going to be cremated. This war is not going to end like the wars in times past. This Third World War is going to be fought with missiles, with ICBM nuclear missiles. This is going to be a war like none other before. And it's going to completely wipe Babylon off the face of the planet Earth. Get this. This is Isaiah 34:11. It says, I'm going to start at verse 8. It says, for it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. And the streams thereof shall be turned into pitch, and the dust thereof into brimstone, and the land thereof shall become burning pitch. It shall not be quenched day nor night. The smoke thereof shall go up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. It says, but the cormorant and the bittern shall possess it, the owl also and the raven shall dwell in it, and he shall stretch out upon it the line of confusion and the stones of emptiness. All right, on America, it's going to be a line of confusion. You won't be able to tell where Florida started and ended, where Georgia started and ended, where New York started and ended. You won't be able to tell different landmarks that are present in Babylon. All right, the Lord said it's going to be a line of confusion. A land where vulture-like, scavenger-like animals inhabit is going to lay completely desolate. And that's going to be through the armory that the Lord is raising up. This is Isaiah 54:16. Behold, I've created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I've created the waster to destroy. Okay? And the Lord has brought forth an instrument for his work in the form of an ICBM nuclear missile. Okay? He got together teaming, all right, their best minds, the best minds of Esau Edom to come together, to split the atom and create the nuke. He got their best minds together to come forth with an instrument for the work in these latter days. He said, I created the waster to destroy. Okay, and they're really going to waste their own selves. The sword is going to enter into their own fifth rib. The Lord has this devil in a trick bag, man. You know? So like it was something I was going to get. Right. I was going to get 2nd Ezra 13. But the Lord has created the waster to destroy. And that waster we understand to be the ICBM nuclear missiles that are going to be shot over from Russia, China, Iran, and its conglomerates. All right. It says, behold, I've created the smith that bloweth the coal in the fire and bring forth an instrument for his work. I've created the waster to destroy. Okay. And the waster is going to lay Babylon utterly desolate. This is 2nd Ezra 13. And I'm going to start at verse 5. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Speaking about Yahushai. All right, after he cracks the clouds with the host of heaven. Okay, these nations are going to stop from fighting themselves and turn to fight Yahushai. It says, behold, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it. Speaking about the fathership that the Lord is coming on. It's going to be so big, it's going to look like a mountain in the sky. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, yet durst fight. You know, they ain't going to want to fight because they're going to witness the sheer power of Yahushai. They're going to witness the pure magnificence of Yahushai, man, and his glory. The Lord said he ain't going to meet us as a man. The Lord is coming in his glory this time. His fullness, the fullness of his strength. They ain't going to want to fight when they feel just the vibration of Yahushai alone, the trumpet that sounds off of Yahushai's return alone is going to set fear in the hearts of these people. But it's going to cause them to fight. It says, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips as a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. There will be no opportunity after this next world's war. There will be no building back better. There will be no rising out of the ashes. A complete cremation is ahead for Babylon the Great, a fitting death for the most wicked kingdom that has ever existed. This is a viewpoint that we've been given through the spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, that has surpassed the viewpoint of these elites who believe themselves to be luminaries, but really they can't see what's right before them, which is imminent destruction. Their imminent demise is at hand, and only we can see it. Really, well, they can see it too. That's why they're moving with great speed, with great wrath. But they don't know how. They don't understand the magnificence, and the strength that Yahushua is coming with. But, that's all I have for tonight. Lord, when us edifying unto you elect, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakudash, and double honors to our apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule well. Grace and peace to you elect around the four winds, believing and pushing this truth in all sincerity. May the blessing of election be upon your houses. Shalom. Stay up.